have you taken a look at our World Cup group giveaway promotion yet? We're giving away up to £100,000 to anyone who can predict the first and second in all of the 8 groups in the correct order during the World Cup. Pretty tough, eh, Marco here. Marco here, of course, is here to take me through all of the 8 groups and give me his 1-2 in each of the groups. We're looking at Group D now, which I think is utterly fascinating, and I think it's the hardest one to do the 1-2 in, that's for sure. We'll do it in betting order, so we'll start with Italy, who are 8-5 favourites with Sportingbet to win Group D. Mark, Italy, always hard for me to call Italy, you know. You think back 2 years ago, they surprisingly reached the final, Euro 2012, but you think back 4 years ago, they finished behind New Zealand in the World Cup group. So where do you stand in Italy?
I'm for Italy. A big reason is Cesare Prandelli, the Italian coach of the Azzurri. He's like your favourite teacher at school. You always want to impress him. They've basically been playing some very good football, enjoying their possession game, moved on a little bit from those defensive ways the Italians used to be known as, much more progressive going forward. They've only failed to score in 5 of the last 31 games since the World Cup 4 years ago, that dismal World Cup. They were comfortable in qualifying, 6 points clear of Denmark, finished their campaign 2 games early. They qualified, so they've basically been playing friendlies since then. Italy, of course, don't perform in friendlies, but they're all about the major tournaments. They've only lost 15 of 80 World Cup games. Since 1982, they've reached 5 finals and 2 semi-finals in 12 appearances in the World Cup and the Euros. That just shows you the pedigree what we're talking about here. A great solid Juventus base to the team in Buffon, Barzagli, Bonucci, Chiellini, and then of course there's Andrea Pirlo, of course, pulling the strings. If Uruguay and England can actually get hold of him and stop him playing, they've got a great chance, but that's easier said than done. Question marks over the attack. Can Balotelli fire or keep his head? Rossi's been injured a lot this season again, which is a big concern. They're a very enjoyable team to watch at the Confederations Cup. I mentioned they're a much more attacking team. They scored 4 out of 5 of their games at the Confederations, saw both teams to score, as did 11 of the last 14 games anywhere. So they should be quite an exciting team to watch, although the draw's really against them. All their games are in the northeast, in the hot and humid northeast. 2 early starts as well, which is going to work against them. You mentioned the Euros as well, where I thought they were absolutely superb. I expect them to be that sort of team again this time. To win the group at 8-5, probably a little bit skinny in such a close 3-horse race, so I'll swerve that one.
We'll swerve that one. Cool. Uruguay are second favourites in this fascinating Group D, 33-20 with Sportingbet to win Group D. Now, Mark, I must admit, 2 or 3 years ago, I thought Uruguay were the ones to be with you in 2014. They won the Copa America in 2011. They got to the semi-finals of the World Cup in 2010. It was all bubbling up nicely, but it's kind of went off the rails a little bit, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's largely the same squad that won the Copa America and also went to the World Cup 4 years ago. A 3.4 million population, they punch above their weight. They love the role as underdogs, but I think they're being a little bit overrated, if anything, in this group, because for a while it looked like they were going to miss out on qualification. They do naturally always seem to struggle in qualification as well, but if you look at their record, they're unbeaten at home, but they scored 20 of their 25 goals in Montevideo, lost 5 of their 8 away games, failed to score in 4 of those as well, only 3 clean sheets in 16 in their qualification campaign. They'll be compact, they'll put many players behind the ball, they'll let the opposition have the ball, and then they'll spring that attack, look for Cavani and Suarez. Suarez top scored in qualifying, again he's going to be the one to look out for, no surprises there. Do they have enough ammo to supply that forward line? I'm not so sure. They'll be picking a lot of defensive midfielders in that midfield because their defence lacks pace with Diego Lugano, who's barely done anything at West Brom, let's be honest. Luckily he's got Diego Godin alongside him, who's been outstanding for Atletico Madrid, but that lack of pace has been exposed recently as well. They'll have less possession and more shots than every team they played against in the World Cup. You'll expect exactly the same again this time. A 33-20, I wouldn't be backing them to win the group. I think more likely is a 6-4 early exit.
Wow, strong words. Of course, let's talk about the third side in Group D, and that is England, who face that really tough draw for Roy Hodgson's side. I think it's fair to say, Mark, that expectations are fairly calm going into this World Cup. The English public at the moment, the flags aren't out. I ain't seen any flags at the moment in car windows and in council estates. Where do you stand in England?
Well, I think you've got to go back to when the draw was made and Greg Dyke's throat cutting sign. I think that's how the English public feel. I think they feel like they're in a group of of death where they'll be lucky to come out of. 33 to 1 is the biggest price they've ever been to win a World Cup. A lot of pessimism sort of follow them, but I think naturally people seem to be thinking England will either win the World Cup or bomb out in the first stage. I like to think they're a lot better than people are giving them credit for at the moment. They're in very safe hands with Roy Hodgson. I think he won't be adventurous, but he will get results. I think that's proven. They're unbeaten in 90 minutes since the last World Cup. Excellent job at Euro 2012 considering the circumstances and the time he had with the players before he took over. A few complaints have been made about the squad. I think they probably lack a defensive midfielder, a bit of a shield for that defence. If they can start to keep the ball a little bit better in games, I think they've got a good chance. Of course, everything's going to be down to that opening game in Manaus against Italy. If they can survive that game, which they probably can, I think that they've lost two of their opening games in the last 10 times in the tournaments. I think it's got a draw written all over it.
Sure.
And I think England haven't gone out in the group stage since 1958. Wow. That's a reason to keep them on side. They're 4 to 7 to qualify. It's not really a bet, is it? 11 to 10 not to qualify and go out in the group stage. I prefer over 4.5 points. At 9 to 10, they should be unbeaten and they should qualify.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think England will qualify for last 16, but let's move on to the fourth side, and that's Costa Rica, who rank outside us at 66 to 1 to win Group D. But you know, you hark back to 1990, painfully for me, when of course they beat Scotland, reached the second round of Italia 90, and there were a lot of people saying this is the best collection of players from Costa Rica since 1990, 24 years ago. Would you concur?
It is. One really big blow for them is Brian Oviedo, the Everton player, who's out with a broken leg. He's going to miss the World Cup. It's a huge blow for such a small nation, but I think they're going to surprise a few people. They're not as bad as people seem to think they are, and I think they're going to have a big say in how this group is decided too. I think you look at their qualifying record, they were unbeaten at home. They beat the USA at home, finished second to them in qualifying as well. Won all of their 5 games at home, but away they didn't win a game. They drew 3 and lost 2. If you look at their friendly results, they held Spain to a 1-1 draw. They lost 1-0 to Brazil, and I think that you get a good picture for how they're going to play. They're going to pack that midfield. Their manager, Jose Luis Pinto, models himself on Mourinho. He likes to think he's very tactically aware and very defensive minded, and how he overcrowds the midfield and frustrates opponents, describes them as a very annoying team to play against. They're always back in position. They only conceded 4 goals in 8 qualifiers. Keylor Navas in goal, an outstanding season at Levante, should be earning a move to a bigger club as well. And as well, going forward, they're the only team who scored 3 goals against the US in qualifying. Wow. You've got Brian Ruiz, Alvaro Saborio and Joel Campbell, players who could score goals on the break. Our compilers, interestingly, expect them to pick up at least a point, because you can back them to get under 0.5 points at 17 to 10, and that's surely the most obvious outcome. They're going to lose all 3 games, but not without a fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I sense some positivity towards Costa Rica from Mark, but I wonder if Costa Rica are in his 1-2 for Group D. Mark, spit them out. Who's your 1-2 for Group D?
It's so difficult. It's the only group not to include an odds-on favourite to win the group. I'm going to have to go Italy and then England.
It's Italy and England for Group D.